At 8 p.m., Napoleon took a little jelly and a few spoonfuls of arrowroot. The fever continued with very irregular intermissions and paroxysms. The patient said that he felt he was growing weaker every day and that all his strength was forsaking him. 14th, the emperor passed a very bad night. The fever diminished after abundant, partial, clammy perspirations. At 7 a.m., the patient took some tea acidulated with juice of citron. At 8, some chocolate. At 9, a little jelly. At 9:30, some hot wine and toasted bread. And at 10:15, 2 cakes. At noon, the morbific symptoms were much abated, and the patient was in pretty good spirits and took another portion of hot wine. He received Dr. Arnott in the most affable manner, explaining to him the sensation he experienced and questioning him as to what was to be done for him. Then suddenly, starting from medicine to war, he began to talk about the English armies and the generals by which they were successively commanded, and passed a most magnificent encomium upon Marlborough. The emperor was better. Hope was reviving in my breast. I could not suppress the manifestation of a movement of gaiety. He perceived it, cast a look upon me, and continued, Marlborough was not a man whose mind was narrowly confined to the field of battle. He fought and negotiated. He was at once a captain and a diplomatist. Has the 20th Regiment got his campaigns? I think not. Well, I have there a copy of them, which I'm glad to offer to that brave regiment. Take it, doctor, and you will place it in their library. It's coming from me. The doctor took the work and withdrew. What is the matter with you? Said Napoleon when we were alone. Nothing, sire. A recollection of the song of Malbrook, with which I was lulled to sleep in my infancy, recurred to my mind, and I should have burst out into a fit of laughter had I not been in the presence of your majesty. Such is the effect of ridicule. It casts a stigma upon everything in victory. The emperor himself was laughing and began to hum the first verse to the song. We were handling Marlborough humorously, but his excellency was not so tractable. He perceived the addition of the campaigns under Dr. Arnott's arm, disapproved of his having taken it, and would not allow the book to come in contact with the 20th Regiment. Arnott, disconcerted, became fearful in his turn lest the work should give him the plague, and hastened to deposit it with the orderly officer who was a captain of that regiment and who, less timorous, did not hesitate to receive it. The act of impropriety angered Hudson. He hastened to the spot, threatened, and removed the officer from his post. He fully deserved this treatment, for he had accepted a book which Arnott had delivered to him. At 2 p.m., vomiting of glarious substances, which was almost immediately followed by violent convulsive agitations, which lasted about an hour and a half, pulse weak, and intermittent icy coldness. At 7 p.m., the patient took some broth and toasted bread and a little jelly. He passed the remainder of the evening quietly and enjoyed a little sleep until 11 p.m., when he was awakened by violent nausea, followed by vomiting of glarious matters. 15th, the emperor passed a bad night. He was drowsy, covered with cold, viscous perspirations, and experienced a general sensation of coldness. At 5 a.m., vomiting of glarious substances. During the night, the patient took at intervals a little jelly and a spoonful of wine mixed with water. At 7 a.m., he took a soup of vermicelli, and at 9, he was a little better. His pulse was stronger, but now and then intermittent heat of the body at the natural temperature. A dose of the decoction of bark with a tincture of the same substance appeared to abate the tendency to vomiting. At 10 a.m., the emperor took some chocolate. The pulse became more regular, giving 90 pulsations per minute, but still weak and depressed. At 1:30, the emperor ordered the door of his apartment to be closed for everybody except General Montsalon and Marchand, who both remained with him until 6 o'clock. When I entered the room, I found the carpet strewn with papers torn up, and observed that everything was ticketed and bore an address. Napoleon had made an inventory of all his effect and assigned to each object a special destination. My preparations are made, doctor. I'm going. It's all over with me. I was presenting to him that there were still many chances in his favor and that his case was not desperate. But he stopped me. No more illusion. I know the truth. And I'm resigned. At 6 p.m., the patient was seized with a violent convulsive agitation, which lasted 2 hours. 16th. The emperor had passed a tolerably quiet night, although constantly covered with a cold and clammy perspiration, and though his sleep had been frequently interrupted by spasmodic contractions in the throat, accompanied by a violent sensation of suffocation. At 1:00 p.m., the door of the emperor's apartment was again closed to all but General Montsalon and Marchand, who remained with him until 5:00. When I was again admitted, I found Napoleon exhausted and manifested my uneasiness respecting the state in which he was. It proceeds, said he, from having been a long while engaged in business. I've written too much. Then placing his hand upon the right hypochondriac region and upon the epigastric region. Doctor, with sufferings, with oppression. I feel at the left extremity of the stomach a pain that quite overpowers me. I see coldness at the lower extremities, general anxiety. In the course of the evening, however, there was a visible improvement. But he had taken rather too much food, and the digestion was extremely laborious, breathing heavy and difficult. Doctor, you ought to marry. I must arrange a marriage for you. For me, sire? Yes, you. I remained silent, at a loss to conceive to what conclusion he was going to arrive. You are too warm, too quick. You want something to calm your impetuosity. Marry, therefore, an Englishwoman. Her iced blood will temper the fire which animates you, and you will be less tenacious. My object, sire, was to administer relief to your majesty. I had no intention of doing anything that might displease you. I know it, doctor, and therefore your patient will henceforward be more obedient. Give me the medicine. I handed it to him, and he took it and swallowed it at a single draught, saying, when a man has been guilty of irreverence towards Galen, it is thus that the sin must be expiated. 17th. Pulse had remained in the same state of depression, quickness, and irregularity until 1:30 in the morning, when a vomiting occurred, and the food the patient had taken was returned undigested. At 6:00 a.m., the emperor took the usual draught of decoction and tincture of bark. This medicine appeared to afford relief, and he was much better the remainder of the day. He ate more than usual and got up twice. I had observed that the emperor was not so ill when the first passages were free, and I endeavored to produce this effect by a few laxatives. He was tormented by thirst, but the use of syrups and beverages made with licorice had produced disgust. He had not yet used lemonade nor orangeade, and as these preparations could not but be beneficial to him, I prescribed them. The difficulty was to procure lemons and oranges, those grown in the island being so acid and so bitter that I hardly dared to use them. This, however, became a matter of necessity, as I could not find any of those imported from the Cape. Picked out a few of the best and cleaned them as well as I could, but all were so abominably bad that the emperor thought he was poisoned. Doctor, what beverage is that? What a horrible mixture! It is lemonade, sire. Lemonade! He remained silent a few minutes, and his head sunk upon his breast, exposed to every insult and to every privation. What hands am I fallen? I proposed the cathartic pills, but Napoleon refused to take them. His pulse had become more regular. He gave 76 pulsations per minute. 18th. Extremely bad night. Sensation of intolerable pain and heat in the abdomen. Icy coldness and clammy perspiration all over the body. 2 p.m. I proposed to Napoleon some medicines, which I thought useful. No, said he, with the tone of a man who has made up his mind. England calls for my corpse. I will not keep her waiting, and shall die very well without drugs. It's not come to that yet, said Arnott to us. Oh, is he not, said I? In what state do you then conceive him to be? You diffuse hope amongst us, but what are your motives? State your opinion. Give me grounds for sharing it. I analyzed and recapitulated the symptoms of the disease, and the doctor soon abandoned a conviction, which he did not really entertain. We withdrew, and the conversation became serious and medical, relating chiefly to the nature of the disorder. Arnott spoke of cirrhosis, of hereditary affections. I observed to him that Hudson was unquestionably the first jailer in the world, but that his physiological conceptions required the sanction of time. He exclaimed against the imputation. I replied that it was a just one, and he did not insist. But Napoleon himself was incessantly talking of cirrhosis, and he had the conviction that he was attacked with an affection of that kind. He confounded nature with the latitude and ascribed to one what was due alone to the other. The latitude is good and the climate very healthy. We are as well here as we were in England. You, doctor, in particular. But you are so used to sufferings that you make light of illness. You consider 8 or 9 months in bed as a trifle. You are not so particular. It is true that I have paid my tribute to the latitude and that I have been exposed to severe trials, but a particular case decides nothing. No, not even the particular case of that great number of soldiers who were lying in your hospitals. Oh, they are exhausted by the fatigues of the service day and night. What? The climate. No, upon my word, the climate has nothing to do with their case. Air is pure and temperate. We enjoy the plenitude of our powers. We should not be better in our own native country. Nor we either? I think not. But if we suffer, it's because it is your lot to suffer. The crisis you experience is one of those which situation neither remedies nor increases. And you think Napoleon in the same case? Certainly. Men live and die everywhere. Their end must come, just as the hour must strike. We are late clocks that go during a given time, after which the pendulum stops, and neither air nor temperature can prolong its movement. No doubt, and no doubt also that to breathe in air that is alternately warm, cold, dry, and damp, to be exposed 20 times in the space of an hour to the most sudden transitions of temperature does not exhaust the vital powers? You exaggerate. Such is not the case. There, see how fine the weather is. But how was it just now? There was a slight shower, a cloud, but before that, how calm, what pure air. It was the true tropical climate. Outward a little before that, a few drops of rain, another slight shower, yes, and then the wind, fog, and all the variations of the atmosphere in the course of the morning. You cite a solitary instance. Not at all. It is the usual state of the weather. No, yes, I have made observations. Here are some also. Let us reckon and see whether it is without reason that you have thrown Napoleon upon this rock. April, 2 days and a half fine weather. May, 2 days. June, 3 days. You do not believe me? Look at the statement. Here it is. There it is.